Hello again, and thank you for tuning in. Hello again, and thank you for tuning in. I appreciate the immense support and all the new subscribers that came in from my YouTube video for the breaking of the narrative from World War II. I put up a poll on the YouTube page for the next topic, and a lot of you seem to be interested in kind of AI in this symbolic thinking and what Scripture has to say about it in terms of like looking through this pattern. I actually have a lot of thoughts about it myself and a lot of opinions, but there's a lot in here that is needed, and so it might be so this video might be a little bit longer from my usual ones, but hopefully I can thread all the necessary information and tidbits for you to get like a general broad understanding with possibly the problems with AI and maybe some benefits. I personally don't I'm not a fan of it. And then lastly, you can see that I'm not recording in my usual setup. I'm away, just spending time with my family, so I'm in a different room for now. But let's just go ahead and get right into it. So it's really important at first to always go to the beginning of the origin story, specifically the origin story of man. And so we need to understand that what it means to be human, and as well as a lot of the, you can say, necessary evils or like obstacles that exist in our world. God created man and woman in order to be fruitful, or in other words, another way to look at it is incarnational, right? That when people unite together in whether it be love through a marriage and the sacraments, in like a club type setting, that there's a certain incarnational element that you can see it kind of living and actually creating body out in the world, right? And so the most obvious one is through marriage. Obviously, when a couple comes together, a child comes about from that loving marriage. And so, that's where you have in Genesis the thread of being fruitful and multiplying, right? And same you can see with the trees, that they bear fruit, right? There's an incarnational element. You can participate with it. You can take its fruit and kind of like participate with the tree and with nature through that substance, as well as in the Christian ethos of the sacraments, right? Something like the Eucharist is incarnational, where God becomes existent in transforms this piece of bread to be his own body and blood, and it descends into us in order to participate with our body so we can be transformed more like him, right? There's this incarnational element of creating body, of being fruitful. The other aspect in Genesis is also this concept, Pajot talks a lot about it, as the garment of skin, right? And so the garment of skin can actually be looked at something like technology. It's something that expands our ability to be able to do something, right? And so with our nakedness, it is difficult to go through thorns, as we will face a lot of wounds, and it'd be unpleasant. But if you wear a garment of skin over it, it protects us from the thorns. The problem with the garment of skin, though, is that we can tend to forget that the thorns hurt, or are unable to live our lives without having the garments of skin be a part of our lives, right? And so you can see this with something. As technology becomes more central in our lives, it is more difficult to participate outside of society, right? So, cars, smartphones, any of those kind of things, it makes it, the more we invest into the garment of skin, you can say it's harder to be, to some extent, fully man. And so those are some ideas that I want to keep in mind. And then the last one from the creation story is also, and it also comes into Revelation, will be the sixth day, in which that's the day the man has been created, right? And so man, we can see, when God creates it, gives us work, things to do in order to participate with the world that he creates for us. And one of those things is to name things. Later, after the fall, we're to work and till the earth as well. And so the sixth day is what is associated when we go into Revelation, when we see that the number of the beast is 666. Now the purpose of that is that the number repeats itself, and so you're stuck in this unlimited cycle of working, right? You never receive rest. You never go into the seventh day. And so it's the number of the tyrant because you're constantly working, right? That's why it's the number of the beast. You never get rest. You never get to die. And so you're kind of internally in this suffering. That's why the number repeats, and it's 666, right? And if I don't know why it stops at 3 specifically. If anyone has any ideas about that, I'd be happy to read about it if you leave me some ideas in the comments or links to articles. But it is the replication of that day, and the seventh day never comes, right? So it's this number of the tyrant. And so technology is actually technology can become, like I mentioned earlier, that tyrant in our lives, right, where we can constantly work. I know some of us that have corporate jobs or something like that, there's less reason to rest, even on designated rest days like the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, or any other day, because you have your phone on you, right? So like, why not check your emails? You can send a quick email when you're off of work. You can do this and that. So you're stuck in this kind of, you can almost say, society of the beast, where there's a constant work around because of these garments that we have. Another example of this is the aspect of collecting data or knowing everything, and through that knowing, trying to incorporate for everything, even the outsider or the remainder, right? And so what I mean by that is, imagine something, once again, like our smartphones, it's collecting data on us, and others use that data in order for research, or how they can sell you something or advertise to you, how they can recreate your image on other platforms now. This is slowly, we're kind of building into the AI spectrum. I hope you can kind of already start seeing these patterns come into effect. And so there's this aspect of even like a census, I should say, of collecting data, right? And sometimes you have the outsider, somebody that is either outside of the normal demographic of a specific country, of a culture, a group, you can say, right? So something like, if you have a knitting group of nannies, it's a knitting group, and you expect them mostly to maybe be like older women or something, but sometimes you may have that kind of punk man or something with like the purple mohawk that comes because he enjoys knitting also. And there's a tendency when you have this data and this knowing this, that you try to make everything fit, right? There's no room for the outsider or to be different in a sense. And so what we see with this AI is this tyrannical pattern of collecting data and trying to incorporate everything, and not being able to account for the remainder, right? So if something is outside of its regular pattern, there's an aspect where it has to make it fit somewhere. The problem of that will be not being able to account for that and trying to flatten and homogenize everything into like a single type of thread. The other aspect actually of AI is the aspect of it being de-incarnational, meaning that it's the opposite of incarnational, right? It's more of a pattern of death. We as humans, when we create, whether it be art or participate in anything, even something less glamorous, like, thinking about painting, but even data entry or anything like that, is that we have these hands and minds and things that are created in order to be able to interact directly with the world, right? And so when you don't till the field, but you can say a robot tills the field for you, there's an aspect where it kind of disconnects you with the past tradition and creates a de-incarnational relationship with the world, right? We start becoming these observers, and you already kind of see this. We become these observers outside of the world, and like we're only solely floating above it and looking at it, and we forget that we're a part of this reality. And so even with something like painting, there's already problems when you look into something like digital art, but there's still an aspect of it where you use your body and resources that you have in order to have this direct link with the medium you're working with, and the aspect of creating something. There's a direct thread between the intellect, the body, and then reaching the article. That's why in something like iconography is so important, is because there's even an aspect of fasting and prayer, and realizing that there's an important in replicating the image of somebody else, especially something like Christ or the saint, and you don't want any of your own passions or ideas kind of to leak into that icon. You want to make sure that you're properly representing the image of that other person, which leads me directly into the next thing about the thing of image, or something like selling your soul, or the prospect of soul. As we know in the creation story, we are made in the image and likeness of God. So when we think of like, what does God look like? He looks like us, right? And it's also said that he takes on, there's a mysterious element where it said God puts on our skin by fully revealing himself of who he is in Christ. And so you have this incarnational moment of God taking on the body of man. And there's an aspect with AI. Well, let me rewind a little bit. An image is not just what you see, though that is a major part of it. You see the face, the eyes. There's an aspect of eyes being a window to the soul, but also looking deeper into that in the concept of soul. It's all your, and it's difficult to not solely make this like a psycho analysis or something, but there's an aspect of your personality, your likes, your art, your participation, you can say, in the world that makes you who you are, right? It's all incorporated into the imagery of you and the human person. That is why a lot of us have shared experiences and relationships. It's pretty funny sometimes on social media. I see people post different weird things that they might have done as a child, and now there's a revelation to realize that none of us had like that unique of experiences, that we all had a similar experience, and it's all what makes us man. And there's aspect of it that are, you can say, the outside of us, or the monsters of us that differentiate with each other. There's variable, but we're all still man or human, you can say. And so AI is collecting all this data of who you are, and in a way can create now avatars, or like clones of quote unquote you, right? It can re-establish your image, and even can take your image and start mixing it and creating, you can almost say like these Frankenstein beings that don't really exist yet, but the computer gets to put it all together, and there's like this fake incarnation to it. Whereas, two people mix in marriage, like mentioned earlier, and it creates a child. There's this de-incarnationality about it, if that makes hopefully that's clear. It makes sense to me. But so there's this disconnect between our bodies and interacting with like the consciences or principalities of this world through this technology, making us forget of who we really are. And at the same time, this aspect of what we've seen in other fairy tale stories and stuff, of it kind of sucking your imagery and your soul out and taking out your meaning and putting it into a computer. There's something like a Platnir, which ironically, I believe it's the same name of the AI company that's right now in politics associated with the Trump administration and things like that. Like the Platnir in Lord of the Rings is another good example, where it can also kind of show you what you want, right? So it can take these mixtures of the world and show you what you want, and bring you back, and either cause despair in you, or give you a false sense of knowing when you don't actually know quite yet what is happening, right? And so that's where you see the common, like this trope of even somebody like Denethor that falls into hopelessness because he sees what's coming, right? He sees the men of the east coming through the shore that will kind of attempt to flank Minas Tirith, or further bringing the forces of Mordor into Gondor, without being without putting into consideration the reality of the world, of the goodness that works in the world, right? And so it takes out meaning from somebody, and it could give us false sense of things like manifestation, incarnation, and even fall into desperation, right? And so these are some of the problems that are laid out in AI. And the further pattern, you can actually see it within the beast of Revelation, like I mentioned with the number of 666, because there's it has this aspect where everybody will come to worship it, like this tyrant that encompasses all, right? And so AI is trying to encompass all of our lives, collecting data through like social media things. It's doing data entry for us. It's creating videos now. It's creating story. We input anything that's incorporated in all aspects of our lives. You know, soon we'll some people will have robots cooking in their kitchen. There's an aspect where it's more of a pattern of this death than the incarnation of from human to table or from human to paper, and it all being disconnected, right? And so you have this aspect, and it's all encompassing in the same way that the beast was. And this is where, that's why you can see, you know, I feel like man in itself and its soul can kind of see this aspect of the tyrant. And it's why some movies we see when it comes to, you know, the security state or something have recognized that pattern before. And it's interesting that most of us feel uncomfortable and kind of maybe hopefully see this aspect of the state, or, you know, the beast knowing too much through this tech. But we still, a lot of people are still going all into it as if they're completely almost possessed by the spirit of AI, right? Like you can stop it by just stopping, but at the same time, no one wants to stop, and we keep building this machine. And so you see, once again, that all-encompassing thing of the beast, and as well as people kind of worshiping it. And I'm not saying there's it's a direct link where AI is satanic, but at the moment, because of the state of humanity and the use of technology, I see it more as, you know, it following once again, a de-incarnational or satanistic pattern than an aspect for good. A perfect example of this is actually the ring from Lord of the Rings, right? And so you have someone like Boromir that tries to use the ring to defeat Sauron, but it's Sauron that's behind the ring, right? It's this aspect of power. And you think that with power you can destroy the power, but that's not what happens, right? We see Boromir gets slain because of his lost, you can say, sense of vision, being blinded by the power of the ring. And so it's like Sauron building himself a body. And you even have statements of a lot of these Google people and stuff saying that they're building a god, right? They're building a new god. They're saying the quiet parts out loud. And so it is this aspect of the AI being a ring, and it itself building its body to manifest itself in the world. I mean, even in the name artificial intelligence, right? It's artificial, it's not real. And this artificiality is going to kind of start reflecting into our own lives, where our own intellect is going to be artificial, because we're going to be under the illusion that we know things or we can do things, while it's the robot that's being able to do this. An example of this is actually recently with ChatGPT shutting down, right? And so a lot of people didn't even know what to do without the use of this technology. And so it's interesting that you already see glimpses of this, and it's happening so quickly, and it's only going to get worse. Now, as far as a solution, obviously for me as a Christian is always to keep close to the sacraments and to Christ, and to be able to live an incarnational life through our relationships with people, and even in a small way to keep the hobbies, you can say, of the old world, and continue painting with pigments and paint, and drawing and writing with pencil, and never losing that, so that when it does shut down or someone tries to take that away from you, it's not, it doesn't, shut you down from meaning, you can say. And then the last thing is, in pagan mythologies and in pagan rituals and practices, there was an aspect of offering up somebody else to the gods. And we already see that AI takes a lot of resources and energy, the feeding of it, of, fuel, water, and there's even estimates saying that many people will actually die because of AI. In a way, right now it's feeding off, you can say, resources from the planet, and then at some point it's gonna start eating man, right? And so these patterns are not arbitrary. You have the same pattern with the whore riding the beast, right? And so humanity right now is behaving, you can say, like a whore with AI. It's making us feel safe. It's saying it's improving our lives. Everything is great, until it's weaponized against you, and it kind of flips on you and starts eating you, or taking away your job or your meaning in your life or anything like that. And so we have to be very careful and understand these patterns, because they're really important, and you can see them kind of manifesting in our culture and the way it operates. And so in conclusion, do I think that we should kind of step away with AI? I think so. But there is to say, well, if all Christians step away, should we give the totality of the beast control to the ones that are kind of serving it? And I don't know the answer to that, but once again I feel like we should just stay to the close to the sacrament, and make sure that we live in a Christ-like manner, and not be consumed by the technology of the garments of skin and the beast. And so thank you again for listening. I would love to hear, more comments of what you guys think about these patterns with AI, with technology, and it all kind of encompassing, and it's like creating this new principality of our world, of like this beast-like entity that's revealed to us in Revelation. And please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Continue to follow us, hit the notification bell, all those little things. And, I hope to see you in the next one.